Hello, good evening, good afternoon, everyone. This is Amy. I came across a video discussion that I believe her first name is pronounced Bronia K, who is from the UK, who is a fellow tarot reader. And she did a VR that I thought was interesting. It didn't relate to any tarot decks um, or anything specific along, certain decks that people like. They're part of their collection. This VR I thought was um, very appropriate because it allows the person who's practicing studying the tarot to discuss their relationship with the tarot and how they got into the tarot. So the hashtag for this is called Taking It Back to Tarot. And basically, it's what's my story? What's my story with the tarot? How I got into it, um, um, my relationship with the tarot. Bronia also mentioned about tarot journaling, which I do. So I have my journals here, and I have a big smile on my face because these journals go back quite a ways. They go back about 25 years. And I want to show you this really quick, and I have to be very delicate with this. There we go. This was something that I wrote on some paper, and this was in 1995. And once upon a time, this paper was bright white, and it is now brown. And this is from a reading that I did a year after my mom's passing. And I wrote down certain keywords in relation to the cards, but I was just fascinated to come across this and just see how brown and yellow and how fragile this is. So it's one of these things that if anyone is to find this information, they're going to be finding a lot about what I was going through at that time. And the aging of the paper adds more of personality to it. So anyhow, my relationship to tarot, or how I actually got into it, I actually don't remember. I honestly do not remember how I got started into tarot. I didn't make a conscientious effort to say, I'm going to start the tarot. I've mentioned this on the odd occasion when I do my lives. Some people have asked, what was the first deck that I used to get into the tarot? And it actually was the Gypsy Witch fortune telling deck. So some of you who frequent my channel may recall me saying a little bit about my background with the tarot. But the Gypsy Witch fortune telling deck is along the lines of the Lenormand deck. So it looks like playing cards. Everything has, the cards have diamonds, clubs, spades, and hearts to represent the four elements. But the cover of the box is a bright orange, and I think you could still get it. I think you could buy it on Amazon for probably like $10. And it's bright orange box. It has, I think, either a blue or black silhouette of a witch with a pointed hat, and the familiar is right there by the silhouette side, and the individual's holding like a little wand, and there's a cauldron there. And I was just fascinated when I saw that deck, and I think I got it probably, I want to say probably junior high. So probably like around 13, 14. And my exploration going into the unknown, the metaphysical. I owe a lot to my cousin who passed away now almost 2 years ago. Um, she she's known me since I was a baby, and she was always interested in the unknown. So I have to do a little bit of a backtrack. I'll try not to get too lost in the story, but it's something I always reflect on, and I put a smile on my face when I think about it. When when my mom left me in her care, my cousin's care, Connie, um, she was she loved horror movies, and that basically starts it. We watched a lot of the old horror movies. There would be these, um on Saturday, evenings, there would be, programs like Creature Feature and, these horror-based programs that are hosted by these, um, crazy, characters like vampire, um, I think there'd be witches, but they'd be on a playful, light side, and I think the last time I ever saw a program like that where a host was hosting a horror show, and I really miss that. I wish these kinds of programs were still around. If they are, let me know. But I think the last one I saw was Elvira, Mistress of the Dark. And so she would always host, she would have her channel, and she would always host these specific um, horror, science fiction, sometimes really kitschy, programs, and she always would poke fun at some of the, scenes. So anyhow, that was the last program, horror-wise, that I remember, watching, and that was probably in my late teens when I was in high school. So going back to Connie, these horror programs and watching all these 1950s, 60s, and even going back, Night of the Living Dead was a big one in the late 60s, early 70s. And so, but she would always laugh at these horror programs that we watched. And so I felt at that time that kind of exposure um, to her humor and to her understanding was that there was nothing to fear, and we knew this was fictional characters, but she laughed at stuff that was scary. She was comfortable with it, and this particular cousin, as I got older, she would tell me stories of things that she would see and hear things and feel things, and I later started to understand um, that Connie had a very special gift. And, it was nothing that I was scared about, while her siblings would just fear, whenever she would say something about someone's in this house right now. They would get mad at her and say, "Don't say that, don't say that." So anyhow, my comfortability with the unknown came through her, and that's what I clearly remember and I hold very close to my heart, and when she passed away, it was hard. Um, so God rest your soul, Connie. Um, and I don't she didn't know, um, that I had, I was exploring the tarot and whatnot. We would talk about things like that, but I never mentioned it, just didn't feel like it was something to talk about because I don't think she did the tarot as her health started to decline. But, I remember her playing with a deck or 2, but these were playing cards. I don't think there were any tarot decks in particular that I remember her working with. So anyhow, a little bit of that backstory. So it was through her being exposed to the supernatural, the horror, the unknown, the s the sight unseen. I started going to the library. I started reading about all these books about, um demon possession and haunted houses, just stuff, the paranormal stuff that was unexplained, and it fascinated me. So I'm mentioning all of this because it leads to how when it came to moving into the metaphysical realm and building up my tarot practice that there's nothing to fear. Um, and so, you know, growing into an adult, working with the tarot as I got into college, you know, late 20s, that's probably when I got really into the tarot. I got the Rider-Waite-Smith deck um, over 30 years ago, and that deck was the deck that I used to help me get through a few challenges in my late 20s. Um, and I still have that deck, but it's retired from my readings. And so I use that deck to really build up intuition and problem solve um, personal challenges that I was going through. So at that time, um, when I took a family loss that really shook me, and there was also another personal setback that I had at the same time with this family loss. It was just like the 1-2 punch for me, and it was just too much. I lost a lot in an extremely short period of time, and it was overwhelming. It was hard for me to kinda get a grip on myself and how to work through all these things that were happening all at once. So, went to the RWS deck, and then, when I was living in Los Angeles, there's a bookstore there called the Bodhi Tree that's no longer there. And there's a used bookstore of the Bodhi Tree in the back, and then they had all the new books on the front part of the store. So there were two separate stores, the annex, which was behind, that had the used stuff, and that's the place I always went to. So at that point, that's when I decided that I can use the tarot as a tool for healing and guidance. And I went to the Bodhi Tree, and I came across. I got this used. I got introduced to Mary K. Greer, and this is the first book that I got in relation to the tarot. And as you can see here, Tarot for Yourself, a workbook for personal transformation. And I still recommend this book to this very day. It breaks down the court cards, tarot journaling. This book basically showed me how to use the tarot more so than just reading the card. It's how you can read it in different ways. Astrology, how to heal, crystals that you can use. I didn't use some of the charts, but here's a chart that you can break down the court cards in different ways. It's a wonderful book. Very simple. I'm a person that I don't like half a grand pages of text to explain different aspects of approaching the tarot. I like something that's very straightforward. This book is actually about 200 pages. Probably 200 pages is the most that I'll take in a book, because that's all I need. And this book is a resource. It covers a little bit of everything, even astrology. So I owe a lot to this book and the RWS deck that I had to help me for probably about 6-7 years. And then after that, I got Ciro Marchetti's The Gilded Tarot. I felt very comfortable working with RWS, and I felt it was time to move on. And so I wanted to find another deck. The RWS is pretty standard. It's, the colors are what they are, but I want something that had a little bit more activity, a little bit more action, a little bit more vibrancy, because with RWS using that deck for healing, it was a guide, that deck for me. But the Ciro Marchetti deck put the excitement in tarot back for me because of the vibrant colors. This deck, I got the first edition, I think came out 2002. And I love that deck. It was just like, oh, this is so exciting. So it felt like the time of me working with the RWS and going to the Gilded Tarot showed the excitement, the healing, the wanting to experience something new with my practice through a tarot deck. So I used that deck throughout my 30s. It was a very important deck for me, and I still have that deck, but it's also retired from readings. But those two decks, and I feel for me personally, those two decks that I had, and any deck I feel that you've worked with that personally got you through a lot, I don't feel that I can use it with other people for readings, but because it came at a certain period of my life, very important. It held a lot of energy. All the ranges of emotions and experiences were placed in that deck. And I can't share that with anyone else. I can't share that deck. So that's why those two decks are retired. I could get another deck, but I don't. I don't feel the need to. Like get another RWS or get another Gilded Tarot deck, but it makes no sense to me. So those decks are retired. And then the Gilded Tarot really moved me into journaling a lot more. So my very first tarot journal is actually a notebook. And this is about 10 years of journals. And let's see, I'll be careful with this. I color-coded these. So blue for cups, pink for wands. I don't know, I did pink. Gray for swords, pentacles. I think it's the same color, maybe a little bit more red. I don't know why I didn't do the color schemes of green, yellow, and red for the suits. So that's what I did. I started my tarot journal, and I did this in 1995. And I have pages and pages of this. 2001, 2006, 2007, 2009. And unfortunately, yeah, it stopped at 2010. Unfortunately, in 2011, I took a computer loss, and all my backup was stolen, including my journals. So I lost my hard drive, and I lost everything that I had typed. I had a template to work with when creating my tarot entries. They're all gone. So, and it took a lot of time, so I let it go. And after I moved on from that, I was also writing. I was also writing and Xeroxing from that time period, 95 to 2010. Here's another journal that I have here. So I was serious when it came to journaling. But journaling's different now. People are being more creative. Which I feel is wonderful. People are putting stickers. People are doing artwork. They're creating their own tarot grimoire in such a way so that they can look back and have a wonderful presentation. But for me, mine was all straight to the point. Everything was all words. This is currently my journal, which is still old. And this, what was the first entry in this one? I think this one was 2005-ish. Oh, that's Scapini Tarot. 2005 all the way up to 2020 was my last entry, because I started changing the way that I was journaling. But these are all personal journals done by the year. All of this. And so I actually looked back at these journals not too long ago to see the transition changes. It's too much. This is almost like, I don't know how many pages of journal entries, a few hundred pages. But I flipped through it during certain times of shifts that were going on in my life. And it was just wonderful to see this. I feel now with my tarot experience, I'm now entering another chapter in my life. I mean, chapters come 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s. But I feel like I've had a little bit more chapters in my life. And I feel like there is some more shifts going on that I'm feeling. And I'm trying to be open to whatever happens. Not trying, I am open to what may come along. But the relationship that I've had with the tarot has been um, one that I have great respect for. I did take a break from the tarot for a while when I was doing production work in Los Angeles. And at one point, I got married and I stopped doing the tarot. And then, whenever a milestone came into my world, I went to the tarot. Whether it's a good milestone or a bad milestone, the tarot was always there. And so, interestingly, the whole process of me working with the tarot has been one that has given me some insight of things that were coming up ahead. So that's what I'm saying, with some of the readings that I've been doing for myself. It's been hinting in its own way that there's changes coming up, um, and not just to be aware, not to prepare, but just to be aware of shifts that are going to be coming up ahead. And that's the wonderful thing with the tarot, because it does guide me. It does give me signs. It gave me signs to um, my last long-term relationship. It was coming up in the tarot, Two of Cups. I was getting quite a few cups in some of the readings. And besides the cards giving me the signs, I had a feeling that someone was going to be coming into my life. And the Gilded Tarot actually um, called it out, which I thought was quite interesting. So that's what I'm saying. The more time you spend with one particular deck and it communicates with you, it's an extension of you. It knows you, it feels you, it reads you. And so it becomes your subconscious partner in a sense, but in the conscious realm. So it's reading what's going on in the environment that you're in, but also how you're feeling. So it was interesting to get those series of cups cards and having that feeling like it was going to happen really soon. And no sooner than a few months after those readings were coming up, I ended up being in this relationship, even down to the depiction in the Gilded Tarot of the Two of Cups, showing um, not the likeness, but at the time, I was full blonde, and the person that I got involved in, um, dark hair, and he was younger. And so that was almost the energy and the depiction of in that card of the person I was gonna meet. It was pretty fascinating. So those are one of the things that I kinda, keep in mind. And this person also welcomed the tarot, and he was given a tarot deck by a friend, and I gave him one of my decks to work with. And yeah, so it- just that connection and seeing these shifts that happen, um, and And from that time too, things started changing, and I moved away from the tarot to focus on going back to what I was saying, to production work. I was moving around quite a bit. I moved out of California. I was looking for a place I could find home to be grounded, so I was, crashing over at people's homes, um, paying rent, but, staying here and there until I found some form of stability, and, that actually happened, about 6 years ago. I finally got my stability in all sense of of the word, my own place. I'm here in the mountains, and then this also allowed me a time to heal, and so I feel my time up here in the mountains has been very important for me because I needed it. The previous years of it being turbulent with that, last relationship, with work, trying to find my independence, trying to find where where I need to be, you know? I don't wanna say I lost a sense of identity, I knew who I was, but where, work-wise and home-wise, where did I really want to be? And so I went through all these different experiences, and it wasn't until I moved out of that situation of, of of not being stable and finding my own place, I was able to start taking the next step, which is my current chapter. And then I got the calling to go back to the tarot, and it's been with me more so in the last 2 to 3 years, which has in turn, uh, shifted me to focus on my metaphysical practice, um, more frequently, doing readings, and I feel this is where I need to be right now. And and to jot down some of these readings that I have and also expanding on the tarot decks that I've had, and that I'm working with is has been indispensable for me. So it's wonderful with the journaling because you see yourself grow, and the point to where I am right now, seeing how much I've changed, finding my interest, seeing the tarot community grow as large as it has gone, um, has been fascinating. There's been, some downs and twists, um, in any form of community through social media. But ideally, what's wonderful is through all those twists, turns, meeting people, conversing, you find your own network of people that are supportive and that are really serious about their practice, and they're not dolling it up and doing more talk about the decks they have in their collection. I like to see more, like Bronia K was saying, I like to hear people talk about their experience with the tarot, what they're getting from it. Um, Certain decks that may be standing out for you that you're connecting with, and that's something that I wanna work with, for this season. So, I change my decks seasonally. So, I'm this week is going to be my last week of working with animal nature-inspired decks. As our season starts waning, our days are getting shorter. Um, Animals are still out there, but the energy is shifting. So I'm moving those decks out and I'm putting in forward from fall and winter. I'm putting in decks that are more introspective. Um, that I'm not gonna say they're shadow decks. I don't have shadow decks. I think shadow work can be done with any deck in particular. There are decks, as many of you know, that emphasize more on the shadow side of things, but there's shadow work in the RWS and some of the brightest, happiest decks that you're there. You just have to um, eh, be more attuned to the energies that are coming from those different kinds of decks. So I'm going to be focusing more on the astrology side of tarot during the season, which I was doing into the spring season. Then summer came and I stopped for a little bit. So I'm going to be focusing more on that. But the tarot will always be there. The tarot was the first thing that got me into my practice. I do some craft work, witchcraft work, working with elements. I'm a big practitioner of elemental work. Elemental work are working with the properties of fire, air, water, earth. When you combine those four elements together, like the pentacle, when that is enclosed, you got the spirit that holds that all those energies together to unite and make the spirit, the individual soul, as one. It's creating that balance, working with those energies. If your energy is maybe more air and less fire, it's creating and working with those balances. So if you feel that there's weaknesses in some of those elements, what do you bring in? What do you feel you need? So I work a lot with those energies. I have now, very grateful for my friend Vicky, who works at Pan's Apotheca in Los Angeles. She has created, custom ordered for me, using her recipes, the Wheel of the Year incense and oils. So I now can connect more so with the elements of all the four elements, five elements, for the Wheel of the Year, the fifth element being the spirit, which is encompassing everything of those four elements. So I now have some more tools outside of the tarot to connect with the seasonal changes. So I'm very grateful for that. And I do candle magic as well. And so there are all these different things, but I keep my practice very simple. I don't have a god or goddess particularly that I focus on. Seasonally, I pay homage to the particular god or goddess of that season because it's very important to acknowledge those energies during the turning of the wheel of the year as we go in and out of seasons and hold respect to those energy forces. So we're currently in the harvest season. Our first harvest was Lammas. We are now going into the autumn equinox, and then we're going into Samhain, which is October 31st. That wraps up the 3 harvest seasons, and then we go into the winter solstice. So keeping it still back to the tarot, it's important because those other elements outside of the tarot is part of my practice. It's part of my metaphysical practice. And the astrology I'm learning. I don't know how deep I will get into it, but at some point I'm going to have to make a choice and see about delving fully into astrology, which will probably move me away from the tarot. I have to really weigh those things out. But for now, I'm working with the influences of the astrological signs, the planets, the houses, also moon energy work, the phases of the moon, and the signs and planets that influence those, or the phases, I'm sorry, that the moon goes in and out of these signs. Those are the forces that I work with as well. So I feel that's enough. I feel that really wraps up my practice to where I need it, to find guidance and inspiration and for healing. So that's how my practice is. I also spent this weekend, just a quick side note, because I'm pretty happy with this. I spent this weekend staining wood, and I got some boxes here, or I've had some boxes. Let me move this here. I know, I think it could have been this Venus and Scorpio. So I stained this like a nice dark brown. The wood grain was a little different with this particular carrot, but this is where um, I put some of my incense. I have a separate box, which I also worked on. It's a lot darker than what you're seeing here. So this was the original finish. So I wanted to make it darker. And this is where I put all my incense oils and other things in here. And I keep it locked away. So this was good, just to kind of get my hands into this. And my hands are stained. I got my hands cleaned up as much as possible. But I mentioned this because this is also an extension of my practice. You're creating a base that you can store the tools, even down to decks. I have a new tarot card holder, which is different tiers, and I'm really happy about that. That got stained as well. So anything that you can add, be creative. That's what working with the tarot, being creative with how you do your interpretations, how you tell the story is important. If you do any kind of work, if you're in the occult, creating sigils, creating your own formula for your own practice, working with tools, working with incense, working with candles, bringing those energy forces into you. Very important. And again, this is an extension of my tarot practice. So that's my story about tarot and my metaphysical practice that I've been slowly building and then stopped for quite some time and now getting back into it. It's all the process. So people worry about when they feel that they've lost the connection to their practice. That's totally natural because you're changing. There are things that are coming up that need to be prioritized, and that's where your focus is. So there's nothing wrong with that. You may have a long break that can last you years, and just go with it. Let it go. I mean, in the time of me stepping away from the tarot, I practice yoga and I still do asana. I explored and read about Eastern philosophy, read about witchcraft, practice a little bit with the occult. Not really my thing, but I respect it. It's a science, I feel the occult is, in a sense. While me, I'm more akin and tuned to the energies of nature, which the occult uses, but uses in a different way. So that's, you find your direction. You find what works for you. Don't be unique. Be your own self. Don't follow anything that someone else is doing because what works for them may be different for you. You may try it a certain way of doing your practice, and it's just not working with you because it's just not for you. You personalize your practice the best way that you can, and that's what I've done. But kept it very simple, you know. Don't get so overwhelmed, which is easy nowadays because there's the social media and everyone is just like, oh, do this, buy this deck, put sigils here and whatnot. That's all good, but you find your own direction, and you will know when it hits home. It'll just feel right. And that's where I am right now with my tarot decks. I released a few tarot decks, and I think now I have it's under 23 or 25 decks now. I'm very happy with what I have. I've seen a few other decks that people have been showcasing. I have no interest in it. And looking at the decks that I have in relation to the new decks that are coming out, I am completely happy with what I have. I feel I have what I need. I have they can work with the elements, my tarot decks. They can work with my practice for craft working, with chakras, all these different all these different influences I feel I have found in all my decks. So I'm very excited about that, and I feel I feel much lighter now with my practice and not feeling forced, um, to work with decks I'm not even connecting to. So look at the decks that you have, kinda be honest with yourself, and if you're unsure about where to go with your decks, just hold on, you'll know when it's time to move on, because you may get rid of a deck and then, thinking, "Oh, it's I don't want it," and then wishing that you had that deck, and hopefully you'll be able to get it, but I'm good with what I have, and it's more than enough work, in a good way, good work, for me to build upon my practice, so I'm gonna keep it at that. Alrighty, so pass this VR along. What is your tarot story? What is your introduction to the tarot? Is there a certain deck that is just entrancing you that you are working with? Do you journal? Think about all these things, the history of how you came to where you are right now with your practice, especially if you've been working with the tarot for over a decade or so. See what changes have gone on and where you are right now. Do you feel better? Do you feel you've fallen back and you need to start forward again? Um, Share that with us. And I want to thank Bronia K for creating this discussion that I'm happy to have taken part. So pass the hashtag along, um, and it's let me see. I wrote it down here. Ooh, taking it back to tarot. That's the hashtag. What is your tarot story? What is your relationship to the tarot and any part of your practice that you have? Um, Leave comments if you like. Any questions, feel free to reach me. And I will catch you very soon. Thank you so much for watching.